With our team at NBBJ Architects in London and the United States. The RDP server is based actually in London, but it's worked on, it's a live server for the architects on the project, and it's fed into by all of the engineers and updated weekly, although it's live for us. And the very important thing is that it is live, because it is then a live document for everybody to input onto. And the outputs for the quantities affairs are equally important, and the CAD measure element of BIM, which becomes an output tool for the quantities affairs, is something that will give a lot more information, a lot more data to enable much more accurate quantifying of the project. These are just examples of some of the drawings that we're currently at in terms of the internal floor plans. You can see that the whole project is now on BIM through 3D. So these are 2D representations of the 3D model, but the output representations and the output renderings and so on are very, very easily produced, so they can be just represented in whatever format you want, in whatever color format you want, in whatever presentation format you want. And equally, the model supports much more, I suppose, three-dimensional kind of views of the building and three-dimensional developments of the building form. So which supports, very much from our point of view, supports the idea that the building is designed and modelled to suit the building type and to suit the site location and to suit the building form that we need to design to suit the particular project. But the building information modelling is very useful for that. The output schedules and so on that automatically come with it, we're starting to work much more closely with those. They can be set up very simply and automatically generated, and I think need to be generated to suit particular projects. And in healthcare projects, as you can imagine, there are a large number of schedules that are required in that. And I think there's a real opportunity here for the client to input briefing elements into the schedules that will support our outputs. And then our 3D renderings that can come from this. The 3D Max rendered view is supported by BIM, so that while we work on this through a 3D Studio Max, the outputs of the BIM can be used very, very quickly to generate 3D models, which is very, very helpful. So there's a huge amount of 3D views and 3D presentations that are being developed on the project. Very quickly on building structure, we have set up a system and I suppose a platform within which I'll just give you an example here of the structure as to how it can be coordinated on the Revit structure. And by doing that, the structural engineers are working obviously on the 3D structural model, but then they're using their own supported platform, which is called an ETABS platform, to allow them to develop a lot more detailed elements of structure and schedules, such as rebar schedules, directly from this. But it's done in a manner that's fully coordinated with the building structure. This is a very, very just a snapshot of the building structural kind of a 3D representation of the building structure, how the ETABS works with that. And then if you can immediately input all of the facade elements and building structural output elements from that straight onto presentation model. So the coordination of structure with the design, and the same application applies for mechanical electrical elements, seems to be working quite well. Interestingly, one of the things that we found is that because everything is being worked through 3D, we don't do as many printouts as you used to, where you get structural drawings just printed out and then marked up. Everything is done on the live model. And to some extent, we need to set up a system, or we found that we needed to set up a system within which we could coordinate ourselves. So we have now a system set up where this is coordinated weekly on a formal basis, because it's very easy not to go through the rigor of coordinating and making sure that everybody is coordinated with each other and just assume that the model is coordinated. It's not. The model isn't coordinated. The model just inputs whatever you input into it. So you have to coordinate still in everything that you do. I think finally, just one of the things that I'd like to share with you are that there are a lot of things that work and some things that don't work on BIM for us at the moment. The most important thing is that for us is the encouragement in the work and thinking in 3D design, and for the architects in our office and for the people that work with us, this is very exciting, particularly for the younger architects who are really very much embracing the whole BIM tool and working with it. However, it does require training in order to achieve that, but it is a fantastic mode for working in 3D. There is huge potential in developing interactive design capabilities on it, and in developing information model that is coordinated. I think it also allows many disciplines to work in different areas on the live model, so that in our case, because we're working on this particular project, we have people working in Seattle, in New York, and in London, and in Dublin, and in various offices scattered around Dublin, and we can work much more easily on a live model with various experts feeding in at different times to this. As long as it's coordinated, obviously, but that has helped us to allow that input to happen into a live model than just drawings to be fed back and forth across the internet, as it were. We think that there is huge potential, I suppose, to transform the whole construction process with BIM. I mentioned the prefabrication elements earlier, but I think there's also a real possibility to, just thinking ahead, we are going to see much more complex and much more three-dimensional buildings emerging from this whole process. You only have to look around at the examples that people were talking about earlier, about the projects that have been carried out in BIM recently in this country, whether it's this project or the Aviva Stadium or the convention centre. The encouragement of working through 3D is going to mean, I think, that designers are really going to embrace the opportunity to really think much more in 3D and output much more in 3D. And I think contractors are going to be able to deliver much more in 3 dimensions rather than in 2 dimensions in the future. But that will be supported through a lot more prefabrication than we were used to heretofore. I think that the issue about extraction of quantitative information and details and door schedules is fairly obvious. I think one of the other things that I would really like to see developing for us is the whole way in which BIM can be developed into the post-occupancy levels of buildings and the evaluation of post-occupancy reviews. This is something that's very close to our heart, but I think that the profession as a whole needs to embrace this issue about reviewing what we do, reviewing our designs, and looking at making sure that the designs that we produce actually work for the people that they were intended to work for. And there's a great opportunity here through the input of enormous data, which BIM really encourages, to use that data to assess what works and what doesn't work. There's always a reluctance, I know, amongst architects, among people, to go back and look at your buildings that you have completed and that you've done, primarily because you've moved on to something else, but also because it's a slight there's always a slight worry that did that actually work or did it not work. But I think it's really important that we learn from things that we've done, not just for ourselves as designers, but learn from people that are using our buildings what works and what doesn't work. And the data that's inputted into BIM can be, and has great potential to be used in developing post-occupancy reviews. Things that may not work so well for us at the moment and could improve. I think that the software is expensive. I know in the current climate it's expensive to purchase a lot of software, and more importantly to train people in knowing how to use BIM. And one of the things that we find is that it is very important that the input into the model is carried out by people that understand the building details. In other words, that it's not as simple as just inputting 2D data onto a drawing. You have to understand the implication of every time you move a wall, every time you move something within a building, that what that has and what knock-on effect that has. And I think it's really encouraging that Jim has mentioned that students are now looking at this in college, because we find, they're incredibly positive about all of this, the BIM model. But it's a real challenge and very difficult to expect young graduates to be able to understand the complexity of some of these processes. And I think it's important that we understand that, and understand that the people who are involved in inputting the information have the knowledge necessary to be able to input it properly. There is a learning curve, and there are things about the speed at which the projects and the speed at which we can work on these programs can be a little bit difficult at times, and the hardware, and the software is still at early stages, so we have to accept that and find ways of working with that and working around that. But it will have to speed up, there's no doubt about that, in order to encourage people to I suppose, to embrace it and to like it and to enjoy working on it, because it has to be something that you want to work on and don't find a chore rather than a help to your projects. And then I think finally the one other thing that I would say is that the 3D output elements of it and the actual model representations of it for architects are are not as good as they could be. They need to be. There needs to be a much higher quality of drawing standards in terms of presentation drawing standards available on BIM. And again, that is something that probably will develop. But we find that we still have to develop our own 3D models ourselves through 3D Studio Max or other programs, because the 3D models that are generated are just not quite good enough to present in as large public presentation documents or large 3D drawings. And that will change, but it is an issue at the moment. I think that where to for us with BIM, we still need to broaden our understanding of what it is we want, not just what BIM is, but what it is for us, and advance our Revit knowledge base and our modelling capabilities that I've spoken to you about. The graphic outputs still need a lot of work, and still need us to keep going with that and keep working with that. And I think we need to communicate a lot more. I mean, between our disciplines and between the discussions we're having here this morning, just communicate with everybody about what works, what doesn't work, and make sure that the progress is made. But finally, the most important thing is that it is a design tool, and it needs to be considered as a design tool and embraced as a design tool and led as a design tool, so that it is actually something that works. It works for designers on the projects that we design. So thank you very much.